you just need to check beforehand. There we go. Cool. Yeah, should we crack on with this then? Yeah. Yeah, cool. I must admit, I got sent a preview of the album the other day and really like it. It's got a really nice, cool poppy feel to it. It's quite summery, quite upbeat. So, do you think that was a result of like lockdown, almost like trying to react against it?
Yeah, I think I wrote it for coming out of lockdown, really.
Mm-hmm.
I think I realized that whatever was happening was going to be relatively finite.
Yeah.
And there was to be an end at some point. So obviously, I mean, a lot of it was written before lockdown even started as well. So it was that. But in terms of the stuff that was written during lockdown, and obviously it was all recorded during lockdown.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was very much focusing on how it was going to feel coming out of it at the other side.
Yeah.
As opposed to writing about being in it, because I just figured that was, as soon as it had finished, it was just wasn't going to be very relatable.
Yeah. I was going to say there's been a few albums recently that are very influenced by lockdown, like the new Nick Cave record, a few other guys like 10 Sheds, where it's very oppressive, quite down and dour.
Yeah, I mean, everyone without exception has struggled. Like, it's been so complicated to get your head around, and each bit of the process has been has been completely different for me. Like the first lockdown, I did absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
literally, I basically just stared out the window, being like, "What is happening?" in the
yeah,
I was kind of kept do stuff, but then I was like, no, I can't. I'm just really distracted by the entire world going mental. Kind of, yeah, I very much was like, I didn't do any work in that. Second lockdown, I saw it coming and was like, okay, it's definitely going to happen again. I'm just going to get on with stuff because I can't just sit and stare out the window anymore.
Yeah.
I'm going to do. There was kind of that one where I really got kind of back into work and got into quite a good flow with getting things done.
Yeah. I mean, the album this time around, it's a lot less acoustic to what we used to from yourself. Was that a challenge it kind of set out from the start, or?
No, not entirely. I think production-wise, over the course of all the records that I've made, I've kind of learned different things from each one.
Mm-hmm.
Then through the best of it was actually working on the covers. I probably learned more from making the covers than I did anything else I've made, because I didn't have that kind of preconception of how I wanted it to sound.
Yeah.
Which I always had with anything that I started playing. I was like, I'll play this, and then something would go, when my hand's there and I want like a bigger, that will come from over there. And it was always kind of built into the writing process. And then with the covers, I was kind of working on the arrangements. And part of me thought they might just all be completely acoustic. And then as I kept working on them, I was like, actually, I can kind of hear other things coming in. And it wasn't coming from the point of like, how should this Newton Faulkner record sound? It was very much like, what's right for this song?
Yeah.
Which massively affected how I approached this whole record, because I just did whatever felt right. And at no point was like, I can't do that because it's not what people expect me to do.
Yeah.
But like Sinking Sand is much kind of heavier, and it's really like riff based in a way that nothing I've ever really done before has been. But it feels right for that song, and that came out of a bunch of kind of rhythmical experiments that I've been doing. But it made sense for that not to be an acoustic thing. Although there are, I mean, it's one of the heaviest things I've ever worked on, but it's also got quite a few secret banjos and mandolins kind of sneaking around.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, I think, banjos. I've used banjo loads on this record, just for little things. It's just such a nice tone. It just does that job and sits in such an interesting place in the frequency-wise. Definitely note things. It just pops through in a way that It's quite hard to get.
A friend of mine does cinema, like soundtracks for TV shows, and he says he quite often hides mandolins in, because he said, and ukuleles, because he said frequency-wise that they're kind of up there, and they just help give the track a little bit of a lift, like a secret ingredient.
Yeah, going muddy.
Yeah. I mean, there's quite a lot of influences in it. There's like a lot of pop, like I said, it's riff based at times. There's sort of like Brazilian kind of percussion in places. It's quite funky and soul. Was this literally you going, yeah, I'm just going to add whatever I want to this, as long as it works, it works?
Yeah, it was very much whatever feels right for a reason. And also, the other thing that had a big impact on me, actually getting the ideas to a point where they worked.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think with all the records, I've always just thrown loads of stuff at them, but there's stuff that I've thrown at it and I know it could work. But I also, like, even sometimes the song itself doesn't, like, I know I can get it to a point where it's working, but it's not, I can't do it in a very kind of short amount of time, which is what I've had to deal with. But on a lot of albums, it's been quite quick, and especially like the end bit of the album's been like, we need the whole thing finished by the end of next week, otherwise we can't release it on that date, and that means the only other time to release it is then, and then it clashes with this release for the label, and it's paying it. And there was always, I mean, I've done records probably faster than anyone else I've come across. I did a whole record in 5 weeks once. What happens when you work in that way is that if an idea doesn't work quickly, it's very quickly kind of thrown on the back burner, because it's like, it's a good idea, but it doesn't work, so let's stop it. Whereas with this process, if I knew it could work, then I would just keep going until it did.
Yeah. And
sometimes that was literally 4 months of working on the same track every single day.
Yep.
I was like, then something clicks, and you're like, this is it. I knew I could get it to this point, and now it's there, and this is good. And the other thing that it gave me a huge amount of time to do is really work on the individual parts in a much more kind of in-depth, detailed way, which I think led to it being much more kind of experimental and kind of covering a lot more ground.
Yeah. I was going to say, I've read the press release, and it said that you really want to challenge yourself vocally with the album, and that comes across because the harmonies are just so well laid throughout the songs.
Yeah, that is one of my favorite things to do in the entire universe. As soon as I've done like a track to a point, it's like, I think I get to spend the whole day doing there's not a vocal. It doesn't need to be like absolutely perfect. It's kind of this whole other like vocal arranging discipline thing. It's fascinating and endlessly fun, and you can really kind of just keep going. And I usually have, for the ones that are on the record, there's usually another 3 or 4 that are good, but just take it too far. Take it somewhere. As soon as you get deep into like sevenths, it gets really jazzy and a bit like, okay, I think that's the line. That's the line.
Yeah. When you start working on triads of various different things.
Yeah, it's just so much fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I had an amazing time and a horrendous time at times making this record, so I think you all do, especially under the circumstances with all the weirdness. I'm trying to think what really. I mean, one of the things is actually the title of the album came in quite early.
Yeah.
That's a warning. Setback.
Yeah.
The title came in quite early, and what that meant is the kind of science behind the interference of light thing, which is when light hits a bubble or hits oil, and it's kind of these very vivid colors in kind of small areas, kind of appearing and disappearing. And that did affect how I approached the album, because I was like, so all the artwork's going to be kind of vivid colors kind of subtly appearing and disappearing. And I was like, that's just an interesting concept to like dig in. Meant that on tracks where, because I actually really haven't used much brass at all. I've used it on like one track over like all my previous albums. So it's really getting kind of deep into that. But again, it made sense under the umbrella of the concept.
Yeah. I was going to say that the vinyl looks absolutely stunning.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Yeah. I know that's what I'm ordering this Friday on Payday. It's like, yeah, already got that ready to go.
But again, yeah, kind of bright colors, which is why I felt you could have these quite starkly different genres from each other appearing as well. So even if you look at the few tracks, like Sinking sounds heavy, but after that, the intro to the next song is a bunch of computer game noises that I spent kind of a week playing with, and just like ding dong, digging through that stuff. And then that became, kind of song came after the intro in a lot of ways. And then, I just think it was about what was right for the songs, and it wasn't about being like, I have got caught up in trying to make the most of the things I'm good at sometimes. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm good at doing fiddly guitar, so I should really like fiddle. And if it doesn't have a fiddly bit, then I've wasted trying to crowbar in things. And it's like, the vocal for this is good, but it doesn't make the most of my range. So let's just push my range a bit. But it wasn't what was right for the song. It was kind of trying to use the song as a vehicle for me to do the things I was best at doing. Whereas on this album, it's very much like the songs are the most important thing. It's making the song work however they feel best.
Yeah. It's almost like your equivalent of a punk album where you're reacting against the previous 6 albums by going, this is what I've done before, now I'm going to try something a little different.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely elements of that. I'm always aware of wanting to kind of grow and develop, but I do think that kind of production-wise, I am unbelievably happy with this record. And I think just having lots of, and again, like I was working on stuff, and there were things, whether it was instruments or whether it was production techniques or whether it was ways of miking things up, where I knew how I wanted it to sound, and I knew I couldn't get anyone to come in and help me do it. So I just had to learn.
Yeah.
So I learned so many like weird trick things, and especially with the drums. Like the drums, when we were first talking about the drums for something like World Away, I was like, well, we're going to have to get a drummer in, and we're going to need a studio, we're going to need all this stuff. And then I listened to some of the other tracks. I was like, actually, we might be able to make this work. I don't even really have a drum kit. The drum kit that I have is my son's. My son is 10.
Yeah.
He got it a few years ago. So it's an 8-year-old's drum kit is what I'm playing. In not a studio that's made for drums. It's not like a big room. It doesn't have a separate live room. I don't have like headphone mixy things so I can get my mix right. I'm doing literally just got a long cable and all of these kind of little things. And first of all, it was finding the part and getting that to kind of make sense. And then there was getting to be able to play it. Yeah. I've played loads of drums, but I'm not a drummer. So I'm not like, that's the thing, go. I'm like, okay, why is my foot early on that? What's that noise? Where is that even coming from? Is that the metal in my wrist? And then all these weird little things where I'm trying to work out how to set up the kit, how to actually play the part right. And then once I've got that, then it was like, okay, how do I need to mic this up? And then even once the mics are in the right place, it's like, okay, so now I need to get the gain structure right for every mic. and it's such a technical process, which normally I would have had like an engineer there to take like a bit of plate, or I would have been working with a producer and an engineer with a drummer in a studio. So what I'm doing is basically eating crisps. Like, yeah, sounds great, guys. But instead, I'm kind of dripping with sweat, tied up in cables in this tiny room with loads of equipment. And there's a certain energy that kind of brings. Those tracks were, I mean, one of my favorite tracks to put together. It's one of the last ones we did, was the last track on the album, Interference.
Yeah.
Which playing drums on that was just an absolute joy. It was so fun. Like all the little fills and stuff, which I had to do like multiple takes, and it took a while. But by that time, we'd done all the other technical stuff, so I could really focus on just playing. But I'm really happy with the drum sounds.
Yeah, it sounds good. Now, I think as well, because it's not your usual instrument, and you're not, trained in it as such, you find yourself doing little things that a normal drummer would be going, no, you shouldn't do that. It shouldn't work. It works in the song, but it shouldn't work.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like I know absolutely nothing about drum fills from a technical perspective. So mine are it's just whatever felt right. And I did hundreds as well. So I'd spend like a few hours going mental and then sift through them and be like, that feels good. The beginning of that one and the end of that one's good.
Well,
that's all of it, then it'll be fine.
Perhaps that's what you could maybe do afterwards, sell off the extra drum fills and things like that. And
yeah, have my own splice library.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, sorry, carry on.
Oh, sorry. Is it? Yeah, it's that. Sorry, I'm just going to turn you this way so I can plug my phone in. Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
It's that level of kind of detail ended up going into everything. So obviously, like with playing acoustic guitar and singing, I've done enough of it to, like, I don't really need to think about the setup for that.
Yeah.
But then when even like electric guitar and amps, like I haven't spent that much time with amps. I feel like I've probably learned how amps work really on this record.
Yeah.
Because again, we just kind of plug them in, and I didn't use them enough to really like get deep into how it actually worked and how I wanted it to sound. So even that's been a kind of this album thing.
Yeah. I mean, I remember seeing you. I think it was like the first main headline tour you did for Hand Built by Robots, and I remember standing there, being a guitarist, watching you play and just going. I think you said, if I remember right, you said it was one of the songs from one of your earlier EPs where you were strumming, tapping, sliding, detuning the string, going back and and I'm just stood there going, how the hell have you even? What would even possess you to start doing something like that? So, apart from wanting to make your life as difficult as possible. So, how did you create that kind of challenge for yourself?
I think I just kept adding new little elements. So it's kind of like, so with the tunings, you end up in a certain place. And then the reason that my tunings change a lot is because I always start from like from one place or another. I've got like a few tunings that I use a lot. And then for certain songs, I get to a point where I'm like, oh, I want that note there, but I can't get that because this hand's doing this and this is there. So why don't I just tune that down, and then I'll just relearn the first bit, or just avoid that string up until that point. And then it's kind of that mentality of it being a malleable thing. And I guess out of that is when you start being like, actually, for that section, I want it there. Is there a musical way of getting that kind of change in? And there's a really fun kind of challenge in that. I mean, playing wise, the kind of technicality of the acoustic playing that maybe isn't massively prevalent on the album itself will be a huge part of the live show, because I'll be trying to recreate kind of 5 or 6 parts of the production at the same time. So it'll suddenly come back into its own, probably in an even more extreme way, I would think, to try and, because I'm recreating stuff that isn't just guitar. It's going to have to go further than that.
Yeah, I was thinking, I mean, obviously you've got the socially distanced tour over the summer, and then you've got the main tour. Is it October time, September, October, November?
Yeah, I've got pretty extensive mapped out plans for how that tour will work. And I'm actually talking to a lot of people that make equipment about what I'm going to need to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. Part of it's come out of, because obviously after kind of Studio Zoo and all the like massively fiddly complex playing stuff, the record after that I kind of focused more on my voice.
Mm-hmm.
And then off the back of those records was a tour where I was multitasking in a way that I'd never done before. So it was the stuff I was doing on guitar, but spread out over other instruments.
Mm-hmm.
So I was hitting like an SPDX with a stick while playing guitar, with MIDI triggers and a kick drum on one foot, and like playing bass with my other foot. And I was doing that. What I realized looking back at that now is that, as complicated as it was, and I was very pleased with the arrangements. I thought the arrangements were really like solid and fun.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. Oh, sorry. Someone's
It's okay.
trying to you can't do that and perform.
Yeah.
You're doing it, and all of your brain is doing it. It's just physically getting it done. You're not getting into the point of like really communicating the ideas.
Yeah.
Which is the main point of music, really.
Yeah.
So I think having done that, I actually want to kind of park that idea, because I do think that idea in terms of filming things for social media could be really fun, because you could actually visually zoom in on each bit, which you can't do live. Live, you're just like, I have no idea what's doing what, because it's just loads of things going like that. So what I want to do is take all the instruments I played, because I spent ages getting bass parts right and trying to not play guitar like a bass player and actually get into bass as an instrument in its own right. So getting bass parts right and drum parts right and all the piano parts and all the little weird synthy stuff. And I want to kind of bring that into the live show.
Yeah.
And use space a bit more. Really, I'm really excited about it. It's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge to get it to work. But if it can work in the way that I want it to, it should mean I can actually perform, especially like vocally. I'll be able to focus on singing when I'm singing.
Yeah.
And not be distracted by trying to do 10 other things at the same time.
Yeah, being able to emote the song rather than kind of coast through it while your brain focuses on the physics of everything else.
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of the proportion of the crowd that really kind of understood what I was doing was so small by the time I'd got to my most complicated, that it really didn't make that much sense to be putting that much effort into something that no one really understood. So I think if I need to chase some tech people today to see if I can get my hands on stuff early and start kind of mapping out the kind of bigger songs, because something like Back from the Dead is kind of drums and it's really big bass, and there are guitar parts, but they're very much kind of small and very stereo, so they're kind of tucked in, and it's fine. Making everything else kind of work is going to be a challenge.
It's going to be make for some interesting 90-minute shows.
Yeah, definitely. I use loads of little drum machines as well, and I'd love the idea of doing that live. So something like Ache for You is loads of these kind of little blinky light push button things just running at the same time. So you could, being like manipulating stuff like that in a live setting, I think would be really fun. And also, it's a machine doing a job. It's not a backing track.
Yeah. So you have that ability to make mistakes, and it's still, even though it's a machine, it's still quite organic and human.
Yeah, it seems more organic to me. And I'll probably use, once I've got stuff and like the sounds in, got it kind of running. I think it's the mixture of that and the kind of multi-instrumental stuff. I love as soon as I kind of let my brain go to a place where I was playing drums live, I think it could be really fun, because either it'll be like the first thing I do is sit down, lay down something, and then play to that, and then that's like a nice visual thing. But then I think what's possibly more fun would be at the end of the kind of crowd participation stuff, where I've stacked the crowd on top of themselves, and then I've got multiple things harmonizing with them, and I'm playing and singing with them, to then log all of that and then go to a kit at the end, I think could be really satisfying, because it just takes it that one step further. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. But I'm having stuff specially made. Kind of going. I'm going all in.
I think with something like this, you've got to commit to it properly. You know?
Yeah, you can't dip into it a little bit.
Yeah.
Be like, ooh, it's a little bit of there. But yeah, we're gonna
nice.
need. Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of equipment and a lot of ideas.
Well, three big equipment trucks in there, just you and a little mini at the front.
Just me. Well, hopefully it means I can use the space a lot more. Because if I've got like a piano, but the piano is kind of part of everything, I can run across, stick in like a piano part, and then get somewhere else and do something else with other bits, and kind of keep it all running.
Yeah, I know Nine Inch Nails at one point, with one of their shows, they had this big back screen that the drummer came up at one point, and he kind of created a drum pattern just by touching these various things, and that acted as almost like a backdrop to everything going on. And they just laid over the top of it, so it's almost like you're creating something like that, something very similar, but a lot more one-man band.
Yeah. Do you remember, did you see any of the tour they did with the Static in the front?
Yes. Oh man, that was just absolutely
amazing.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, and I think is it the I forget which DVD it's on, but it's there's that Static sort of thing going at the front, and he swings at it with a microphone, the whole thing shatters, and the screen.
Yeah.
Honestly, the production values is just.
Oh, it's ridiculous. I mean, that genre of music is always, they've always put on pretty spectacular. Even like Iron Maiden with Pyrotechnic, and they've always just gone to town.
Yeah. So is this tour going to be your equivalent, your Iron Maiden tour, your?
I don't know. I mean, I'll see how the album does. If the album does well enough, I can completely go to town. But I'm kind of operating from a point of, like, I don't have infinite money to kind of pile into it. And there is, it's not going to be quite ELO levels of giant spaceships going down from the sky. But musically, I can definitely really step it up a notch with the things I've already got. I'm just trying to add more colors again.
Yeah, awesome. I'll let you go because I know you're really busy at the moment.
It's fine.
It's
been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Honestly, I've loved it. Like I say, I've been a fan for a good few years, so this has really made my day, and I'm looking forward to seeing you out there.
Oh, just out of interest, do you have a favorite track? Because so few people have heard the 17 tracks.
It was the very last one. I can't even remember what it was called. Yeah, I was walking back yesterday. And the Interference. I think it's Love. Yeah, that just kind of, just in case my mum ever catches this. Yeah.
You're never doing an interview with that man again.
No, I still get a clip around the ear if there's any bad language, even at 50. It just kind of, for me, it just closed everything off perfectly. It was the perfect quarter for everything, and it just tied everything up. Yeah, it was just so nice to actually hear, especially in all the sunshine as well, you know.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one for driving as well. Kind of arm out the window, cruising into the sunset vibes.
Yeah, well, I don't drive, so I'll just be walking along fences like this.
Yeah, just walking along.
Yeah.
Don't drive either.
Well,
take care, man. Love to talk to you.
Yeah, you too. Look after yourself, okay, then, Ewan.
Yeah, I will do, man. Take care. Bye.
Thanks, bye.